Welcome to my review of Cocaine Bear. This is actually Elizabeth Banks' third film as director, but to me, this kind of felt like a premiere film for her. She did Charlie's Angels, Pitch Perfect 2. Those are kind of brands you already know, they're already ingrained. This feels like her first foray into an Elizabeth Banks film. Immediately in this movie, you're brought into the choices that she's making as a director. If you've ever seen Wet Hot American Summer, which she's a big part of that ensemble cast, this movie opens with that signature song. Instantly recognizable as the Wet Hot American Summer song. So it really made me think about the choices she was making as a director and what she was going to bring to this movie. And while it doesn't ultimately reach the zaniness of the Wet Hot series, few things can, it does have a lot of comedic chops in this movie. A lot of Elizabeth Banks's, I would assume, comedic flair, comedic style is in this movie. The opening scene did just so much for me. It set the tone. It set the playfulness that this movie was going to have. It's just a man coked up throwing bags of coke out of an airplane. He's having a great time, and it's inviting the audience just to have a great time too. And I hopped on board pretty quick. That, along with like wondering what Elizabeth Banks will do in this movie, kind of made me very interested to see what this movie had to bring. And this movie did bring a lot of enjoyment for me. I was in a very good audience. Everyone was there to enjoy the full premise of what they came to see, and that's what you get with Cocaine Bear. It lives up to the name. It's one of the best titles of this year easily, but it's one of the best titles of all time, I think. You know what you're getting when you come into this movie, and it pays off that premise in full.
The bear, it fucking did cocaine. A bear did cocaine.
I liked how the Cocaine Bear was set up as this ultimate horror villain figure. It's like once you utter its name or once you sense its presence, the tone shifts. Horror becomes the new element. It becomes this ultimate entity that just cannot be stopped. And by the end of this movie, it physically cannot be stopped. It spits a bullet out of its teeth. I just liked how the villain and hero role kind of became blended with the Cocaine Bear. You root for it, but you also fear it. Every human character obviously fears it. But you as the audience want to see this crazy coked up bear succeed. Most, if not a lot of the movie is built on shock value. Obviously a bear attack is going to be a very shocking thing to witness, and this movie plays at that almost every time you see the bear. Gore and violence are a huge part of this movie, so if you're looking more for just the comedy elements, I'd probably steer away. If you're looking for the all-around bear attack of it all, you're going to love this movie. I also found that a lot of the moments that were really landing in my theater were moments that the trailer specifically hyped up or kind of gave you anticipation for on this premise. A lot of the audience was waiting for those moments that they had been promised in the trailer to come and then land for them, which a lot of them did. A lot of them actually did land for the audience, which is good. A lot of the times when a trailer gives away some of those moments, it's going to fall completely dead, if not super flat. This one actually heightened the excitement, heightened the anticipation, because this premise is so bonkers that people wanted to be there to witness the payoff. The comedic elements are still there, though, for sure. It's a very funny movie. I think a lot of it has to do with great casting choices by Elizabeth Banks and the casting director. A lot of the times you can sense that Elizabeth Banks just let these actors kind of roll, kind of riff, have fun, to find some of those juicy moments that led to more comedy. A big example was between Margot Martindale and Jesse Tyler Ferguson. I think those two were some of the highlights of the movie. And there's one scene where they're just over a trash can talking about which animals can get into that trash can. And squirrels. Oh, squirrels. Yeah. What about beavers? Oh, beavers. So you can tell that some of this movie is kind of fast and loose with its script in the best ways. I actually thought the child actors were a big highlight of this movie too, which is usually not the case. These child actors brought so much spirit, and it was so crazy to see children doing cocaine, but this movie felt so wrong but so right in that way. It wanted to dig into those gray areas of comedy. The young boy has one of the best lines in the movie, which you see in the trailer.
I'd love to not remember that, but it kind of seems like the thing that stays with a man forever.
I will say the last set piece didn't really work for me. You can tell that the writer of this film had a lot of characters and a lot of different people to bounce with, and it had to coalesce somewhere at the end, and it kind of just fumbles what to do with those characters at the end. The set piece didn't really fully land for me with the waterfall. It just felt like they were trying to find how to close this movie that is so ridiculous, and they didn't really know how to do it. They eventually get there, but some of the character work that was brought into that third act just felt a little hammy, felt a little forced, which disservices the first half, which is so open and fresh. The second half becomes kind of standard. So yeah, I really enjoyed the film. I had a great time with the audience. I will see what Elizabeth Banks has to do next. I think she has a fun, fresh style that I'm curious what more will come of it. But I did have one struggle, not a struggle, but I was dealing with this thought through the whole film. And I'm curious what you guys think, so I'll leave it here at the end. Is death ever really funny? Mutilation is funny, as this movie clearly shows. Surviving an attack is funny. But death, once you cross the threshold, is it ever funny? Because maybe I'm just too empathetic. I'm too much of a bitch. But in this movie, I was constantly being taken out of the comedy by just how serious this situation was. Like, a bear attack in itself is not funny. So the situations that the characters are constantly being forced into, I found myself pulling back just due to the sheer horror or the shock. And then once death came, the comedy kind of halted. And that's not the case for everybody. A lot of people in the audience were laughing all throughout, but there's a point for me, and it's a moment somewhere between Margot Martindale's face being scraped on the pavement and her actually dying, that the comedy is lost and the stakes are realized. That's a great sequence, one of the best in the film, and it's just an example of what I'm trying to get at here. I wonder what you guys think about death in filmmaking, and if it can ever actually be played for comedic purposes. I understand surprise, shock. You're going to point me to Pulp Fiction about the guy getting his head blasted off in the back seat. Hilarious. But that's based on shock. The next 20 minutes are the ramifications of shooting someone in the head in the back seat, cleaning up the car, dealing with the person you have to go in the garage. So that isn't funny. The comedy comes from the cleanup after. The death isn't funny. I'm wondering if death can ever actually be comedic. Maybe humans won't allow that to be the case, but I am just posing that question here at the end. I'm just posing that extremely philosophical question at the end of this Cocaine Bear review, and I would love to hear the answer. So thanks for listening, guys. Like and subscribe to the channel if you want. There's going to be a lot more movie talk for sure. If you like that kind of thing, I'm your guy. See you on the next one.